following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Hey folks, we are back for another week here at Belly Up Fantasy Live. Big week of action, every team in action here in week 12, but we've already had a quarter of our games played with 3 on Thanksgiving Day and the NFL's first ever Black Friday game. We'll cover all those. We'll also talk about some guys coming back today, which games we like for you, and all the other headlines that are coming up, including, hey, are we going to see Justin Jefferson before the bye, or is he going to be, hopefully, a playoff saver for you? We got all that and more coming up right now here on Belly Up Fantasy Live.
Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees, and a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. Game time. Let's get it started here. Welcome in, everybody. I am Chase Thornton, coming to you as always from the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar here. And it is NFL Week 12. And like I said in the cold open there, we've already had 4 games played this week, 3 on Thanksgiving Day. We're all used to that by now, which is nice. It spreads it out, kind of gives you the entire day there to kind of just sit, let things digest, literally. And watch your favorite teams. I had a good Thanksgiving. I hope all the rest of you did too. I had an even better one because the Packers actually played like they meant it. And then we also had the first NFL Black Friday game, and it definitely was a Black Friday for the New York Jets. We can talk about that here coming up too. But we are not alone. We have, as always, Kevin Wilson. How are you doing, Kevin? What do we know?
Well, we know that we're having a good Thanksgiving here as well. And we also know that fantasy can be, it could be what's cruel, okay? Because last week in my redraft league, my home redraft league, I lost by not a point, not 4 points, by a half a point.
Nice.
Yeah. A half a point, okay? And so, so that's the second time that has happened to me. And I have never, ever come across anyone else that has ever lost by half a point. Now it's happened to me twice. And the first time was in the playoffs, so that really stunk.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm fighting for a playoff spot in that league, and that did not help. So other than that, however, everything's doing well here. We got some rain last night, but we got in before the rain happened. So we're doing good, and hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Ours could have been better because of the Thursday night, game. So hopefully we won't, take too much time talking about that. And but as I say, it's a great Thanksgiving weekend. We're doing great here, and of course, I'm always glad to be here.
Excellent. Losing by a fractional point. I know I've done that. I have had that a couple times in Dynasty, but when you've got 21 Dynasty teams, that'll happen occasionally. But the closest heartbreaker of a loss I ever remember, I lost our champion. I lost my home league, my original 20-plus year home league championship by a single point in some fractions. But the biggest thing about it is that I had been counting on Marquez Colston from the New Orleans Saints, and he had a ball go right through his hands. Yeah, I mean he caught however many 5, 6, 7. He was their leading receiver for the Saints, but Drew Brees threw one that hit him. It went right through his hands. He had it right here and on the sideline. Would have been about a 30-yard gain. I'd had the championship, and so that's the biggest heartbreaker loss I can ever remember there. But hey, Thanksgiving weekend, it's snowing here currently. It snowed overnight, but we're having a good weekend. Like I said, hey, the Axe is back home. For those of you who maybe didn't see or didn't pay any attention on rivalry weekend, the Minnesota Golden Gophers and the Wisconsin Badgers played. Minnesota was on a 2-game heater on this one. They'd had it 2 years in a row, which was weird because prior to that, the Badgers had won it like 18 years in a row or something like that. It was a big joke. My best friend is a Gopher fan. And one of the things I had said to him was that, hey, our sons have never known anything different than the Badgers having the axe. So don't feel too bad, John. Well, then now he was on a 2-game streak, but it's back. This is a little replica my wife had gotten me at some point.
I like that.
Yeah, it hangs up here in the bar on years that the Badgers own it. It hangs Badger side out. On years that the Gophers own it, it hangs Gopher side out. I'll get to turn it around here. The nice thing is that the wall is yellow here in the bar, so that when it's it kind of fades into the background when you have it up. But we get to turn it red side out, right side out for the year. Let's get into it here. Yeah, week 12 in the Belly Up League here. Listen, we took a tough loss. You want to talk about tough losses? We didn't take a fractional point loss last week, but we had a 3-point, not quite a 3-point loss to insert name football club. Drops us to 5-6. We're still 9th, and we're still right there. With a couple weeks left in the regular season, we're still right there for a playoff spot. We have to win here. The thing that keeps nailing us, and it looks like it has the potential to nail us again this week, Kevin. We struggled with our running back position, trying to find a starting running back. We finally got Jerome Ford off. We felt good about that. We were missing Ramondre Stevenson because of the bye last week. We were also missing Drake London, one of our other starters from the bye last week. But the Jordan Love Justin Fields dilemma, when they've both been healthy, has absolutely killed us. It seems like we've picked wrong every single time.
Yep, and it looks like we're on the wrong end of the quarterback selection this week after Thursday's game.
50-point game Jordan in our league.
Did what Jordan Love needed to do, and so I didn't predict that against that Detroit defense.
No.
And so good on him, bad on us because he's on our bench.
Yeah, it seems like literally every time they've been healthy, we've picked wrong between the two. We started out with Fields, our unquestioned starter this season. We had a rough start to the season, then he got hurt. Meanwhile, Jordan Love was outscoring him the first couple of weeks, and everybody thought, oh, maybe Love's an NFL quarterback. Then when we switched finally, then Love kind of dropped. Then Fields gets hurt, and we had to roll with Love, but every time they've been healthy together, it seems like we've picked wrong. Had we picked Love over Fields, we'd have won handily last week. As it was, you roll with the punches. This week, we're facing Nate Nguyen, our friend there from the Case and Nate show, also an editor and writer over at Belly Up Fantasy.
Which he has a great show, by the way, if you have not watched it.
Yes. Fun guy, great guy.
He makes the show fun, even though he's a New York Giants fan, which would be tough to do.
Writes a lot of New York Giants content there for Belly Up Sports too. So
he's a lot of fantasy content as well. But check his show out if you have not done so.
If you're a fellow Giants fan, you can check Nate out, and you guys can commiserate together on that one every week. But he's already got 24 points from Miami's defense because apparently Tim Boyle is the guy to target every week. If you have a defense, if your league plays defense, just follow Tim Boyle around the league and play the defense that's starting him.
And just the Jets in particular, because
that was rough. We'll get into that.
They had you talk about a snake bitten franchise. They had the butt fumble a few years back, and then now they go for a Hail Mary, which they run it all the way back from the goal line.
Never seen that. Never seen that before.
Not even touched.
Yep. Never have seen that before.
I didn't look into seeing how many points that particular play was worth. I'm sure it was because it was 99 yards, A, and B was interception. So,
but
there you have it.
Ouch. He's already got
and if you
24
start
there.
Miami's defense, which they don't have a great defense.
No.
And applause to you, Nate, for doing that, because that took some moxie. Even though they're playing the Jets.
Even though they're playing Tim Boyle and the Jets.
Yeah. And so good on him for that.
So he'll have CJ Stroud, or no, he doesn't have CJ Stroud coming up here, but he's got a pretty modest lineup. He doesn't. He's not a strong team so far this season. I believe he's 3-8 on the year right now, but he's got a good start from the Miami DST. But our lineup decisions, like we said, we already talked about having Fields over.
Yeah, we made a mistake with that starting.
We'll see.
Job. Okay.
Well, we started Dobbs over Myers. We'll see if it's a mistake because I mean, like we said, Drake London's on bye. Quentin Johnston, I don't have a whole lot of faith in. Jerick McKinnon is out. So we're pretty shallow right now in terms of our options anyway, but we started Dobbs over Myers. Dobbs had a pretty modest day. We'll talk about that in 2 seconds here, but yeah, I mean, he got a 6.7 points. And the nice thing about that, the way I like to look at this is that Nate started Jackson Smith and Jigba in one of his receiver slots, and that only got him 6.1. So we actually won that battle.
Read my start sit.
Yeah.
Okay. That I wrote for the Thanksgiving Day games. And if you've got 2 receivers ahead of you, as the Seahawks do, we're going to talk about that, I guess, in a minute too. But going up against the San Francisco defense is never the play. Never.
No, so we came out ahead so far in that particular battle, but like I said, we've got some ground to make up with 24 points going to his defense. Now we have a defense in Cleveland that has done it before and can do it again.
They've done it. Yeah.
We had another nice day, not a great day, not a world-beating day, but another decent day. Point total, double-digit point total from Jason Myers, who has been our kicker for most of the season here.
Right, except for missing the kick against the Rams, has been money.
Yeah,
all season long.
I mean, I think we missed on a 50-some yarder here in this game, but guys are going to miss 50 yarders, and you don't count on those. Those are awesome when you get them, but
yeah. So,
all right. Well, let's look at these games then from the weekend, from Thursday. We'll start with my game, the game that I was happiest about. Green Bay shocking the world and coming into Detroit and beating them 29-22.
And it wasn't that close.
No, it really wasn't, weirdly enough. Like, yeah, I mean, it ends up a 1-score game, and there was a half a second of drama as a onside kick bounced around. But really, like you said, it was not that close. The Packers came out of the gate. I mean, they threw the big play to Christian Watson, the 53-yarder, right off the bat, literally first snap. He catches this one, unlike last year during against Minnesota to start the year, where he dropped the sure touchdown from Aaron Rodgers. But they kind of hit the ground flying, actually.
Yeah, and you mentioned Christian Watson. He had a good game.
Yeah.
And Love, of course, had a great game. Jaden Reed had a touchdown. Okay. Yep. And he's had 19, 18, and 14 fantasy points in his last 3 games. You want to talk about a guy that you might want to look into picking up? He's at 31.5% rostered. So there's my early recommendation right there.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Love earlier. Had another nice day. This is a couple of big games in a row for him. 22 of 32, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he also ran it 3 times for 39 yards, including a big one that could have been even bigger had he not slid when he slid. My dad called me after the game. He was like, "Why did he slide when he did?" It was like he rounded first and slid immediately all the way to second, which in the NFL doesn't count because where you start is where they count you. But yeah, a couple of some nice runs there from him, and a nice day from him overall.
So very nice day. And so that the Packers, I've been reading and watching ever since that game, and people have been talking about, well, has he convinced Green Bay he's the quarterback of the future? I wouldn't go that far just yet. But he's going to, if he's the quarterback of the future, then that makes things way easier for Green Bay going forward.
Oh,
then they can make decisions in other areas of, on their team. So, but you got to like what you're seeing in the last couple of games out of him.
A.J. Dillon with a modest day. I mean, didn't have a great day. 14 carries for only 43 yards. He did catch 3 balls for 38 yards. But again, so he got you double-digit points. But speaking of those decisions that they've got to make going forward, Aaron Jones had restructured his contract. He'll be kind of a little bit bigger cap hit at the running back position than you really want going forward. A.J. Dillon has not looked like his old self so far most of this season. So they may have some choices to make here at running back coming up there, but this receiving core, you mentioned Christian Watson, 5 out of 7 for 94 yards and a score, kind of looked like the Christian Watson that went on that 3-game bender last year.
And 2 straight games. So he's on that roll that he gets on.
Right.
And if he can maintain that.
Keep rolling, Christian, because we could use that in fantasy and the Packers could use that on the field.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Reed had a touchdown. Dobbs had a little bit of a modest game, but Tucker Kraft, their rookie tight end, scored his first touchdown a week after looking like he had scored his first touchdown on a great play, a nice play, tightrope on the sideline. You know, we it's been covered ad nauseum if you paid any attention to Green Bay media or NFL media talking about the Packers, that they have this incredibly young receiving core where, I mean, like Watson and Dobbs are like the old men, and they're in
Right.
they're in their second seasons.
Right.
Josiah DeGuara, their kind of H-back, part-time tight end, sometimes fullback, mostly roster filler, is like the only multi-year guy that actually gets any kind of look on this team. Everybody else is a rookie or a second-year player, but this was the kind of game where, and lately, you know, the talent has shown. They've done a nice job of picking guys who have talent and can play the position in the NFL. They haven't spent all of these picks on busts, it looks like. I mean, Romeo Dobbs looks like he can play. He can be a solid player. I don't think he's a superstar type, but he can play.
No.
Jaden Reed looks like he could be a star type player.
And if those are your 3 wide receivers, you're in good shape.
You don't have to spend money at that position, and you don't have to make decisions at that position for 3 years here. And you can, like you said, if Love ends up being the guy, now they can fill the roster elsewhere.
Right. You know,
but we got to see if Love can maintain
the running backs that you just mentioned. They've got decisions to make there. And if they have to make decisions with Love as well, that muddies the waters. And so if you take Love out of the equation, then they can address these other areas. And, you know, if they play anything like they did on Thursday going forward, because Detroit's winning a division. I think that's not a
question. That's not a question. Yeah, even after that hiccup on Thursday, they'll win.
But, you know, you could set your team up for success going forward and find out what you need to do going forward. And
they got a tough game next week against Kansas City. That'll be a tough game fantasy-wise and on the field. But after that, they've got 3 winnable games in a row. It might be a Jordan Love stretch for us at quarterback. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Mr. Fields here today. But I'm sure that we'll pick the guy that scores 30 as opposed to the guy that scores 50 every week.
Right.
But yeah, no, future cautiously might be optimistically bright there in Green Bay, if not necessarily on the field, at least fantasy wise, because if Jordan Love can score these points, he might be a guy that you can play in fantasy regardless of the results on the field.
Right. And so, you know, things are looking, I would say, better than they were, you know, a few games ago for Green Bay. And
the arrow's at least not pointed down right now, like it had been.
The arrow for my Seattle Seahawks is pointing way down. Because they've got some tough games coming up. You know, they got Dallas on Thursday, and then they got Philly the week after that. And so, no, they got San Francisco and then Philly.
Yeah.
So they could have a losing record 3 weeks from today.
That'd be they've got a rough stretch there. They showed that actually on the broadcast as well, like where the Seahawks. Oof, that's a rough schedule coming up. We could talk about that game real quick too. That was the Thursday night game. Your San Francisco goes into Seattle.
That game wasn't as close as that final score.
Pops them off at 31-13, and no, I mean they had a hard time getting going against that defense.
Yeah, and you kind of had to figure that with Geno Smith. He was coming off an injury. And
had to wrap on his arm the whole night.
Did not start Geno Smith. Okay. Hopefully you read that and did not do that. And hopefully you also sat the running backs for the Seahawks. And you know, Charbonnet.
Yeah, really
nobody start a rookie against that 49er defense. No. You don't want to do that.
We didn't necessarily want to start anybody versus that defense here. I mean, Smith comes out and only has 18 completions for 180 yards. He threw an interception, ran it 4 times for 21 yards, which isn't terrible for your quarterback, but just could not get anything going. Charbonnet, like you said, a real modest day, only 47 yards rushing. He did catch all 4 of his targets, but for only 11 yards. And then the receivers, you would have thought in a game where they're trailing as much as they did.
Yep. They would have better results. And those are the 2 guys I said start for the Seahawks, because that was the 49ers, if you want to call it a weakness there. But
the one position in fantasy where you can score some points against 49ers is that wide receiver position.
Right.
Jackson Smith and Jigba
for 62 yards.
Yeah. No, a rough day.
That's a rough day. And as I said, hopefully you did not start Smith. Hopefully you haven't started him this year.
Yeah.
In
Jackson's threw the
Dynasty,
jig, but he led them in fantasy. He led them in yards with 41 yards, but on only 2
Well-
catches. Lockett only catches 3 balls for 30 yards. You mentioned they had 62 yards between the two of them because DK, despite seeing 9 targets, only
9
caught
targets.
3
That's
of them
tough to do right there.
for
You know,
32
veteran wide
yards.
receiver and a veteran quarterback, 9 targets, only 3 completions.
So just a rough day all around for them. Smith was sacked 6 times by that San Francisco defense. Just a rough day all around there. On the other side of things, I mean,
Yeah,
Christian
everything was
McCaffrey.
Golden.
Yeah, Christian
the other
McCaffrey had a
side.
Christian McCaffrey day, 114
it-
yards, couple of scores.
Yeah, I don't want to hear another person talk about whether Brock Purdy is the quarterback going forward. He is.
He is
Can
that
we
kid's an
please stop
NFL
this?
quarterback.
He has 7 TDs and 1 interception in his last 3 games.
You're paying
Okay.
him the equivalent of a McDonald's fry cook
Absolutely.
because he was the last guy taken in the draft.
right.
And that's the exact model that
That
you
is.
want to follow. The rookie
it.
quarterback on his rookie contract and then fill pieces in around him. Seattle did it better than maybe anybody else and got a Super Bowl out of it.
Yep.
The 49ers right now rolling with Brock Purdy are golden. The kid can
Golden.
play legitimate football.
Yeah.
He is not necessarily a product of the Shanahan system or the people they have around him.
Well, even
The
if
kid
he
can
is,
play
so
some
what?
football. Even if he
Yes.
is, so what? Like you said, he fits perfect, and you've got the guy right now that can
You've
get
got
you
the
there.
guy. They've
Yeah.
got the running back, of course. They got Samuel who showed up, and Kittle. What more could you ask for on offense? And then their defense is rounding into form after some issues earlier on in the season. And I shouldn't
nice
say
game
anything
from
more
them.
positive about the 49ers because
But
I might black out if I keep on doing that.
But you can't help it because they deserve it right now. Debo, like you mentioned, caught 7 passes on 9 targets or 79 yards, which is a modest day. But he also ran it 4 times for 15 and a score too. So he gave you a
your value.
perfect
if he
Debo
keeps
day.
doing that,
Gave you
you're
a perfect Debo day. Yep.
Yep.
He
And
can
the
do
only
anything.
question is because the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles play next week. So
That'll be a fun game to watch.
that will be an interesting game. And if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt again,
Right.
and,
We might
that's
actually
what
get to
happened
see what it
last
would have
time.
looked like last year. Yeah.
We'll be able to see that. So that's a game right there. Because I don't care for either team. So I could just sit back and let them beat on each other and see who comes out the winner. So
All right. San Francisco, Kittle had a modest day, but George Kittle, that's what you're going to get with George Kittle. You're going to get those boom explosion days where he goes off for 2 scores and catches 7 balls. You're going to have
But
the
if
weeks
you've got
too where he
Kittle,
catches
you
3
have to
for
put him in your
15.
starting lineup. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah,
Well, who
you
else you
can't
gonna put in
There are very
besides
few guys you're going to start ahead of George Kittle. You're not using him as a matchup based play. You're using him as your tight end if you have him and when you have him.
Right.
The other game then on Thursday, Washington gets destroyed by the Cowboys 45 to
That
10.
game, that game was close going into that fourth quarter, and then the Cowboys.
That fourth quarter was an absolute, that was
that's when
I don't know if I have words for that, and I have a degree in the language, folks. So
No,
yeah,
the game. We're about an hour from that stadium, but so
did
we
you hear
had
the cheers from your backyard because
it was pretty
they should have.
close, and yeah. So, but it was pretty quiet in the first half, but once they got it rolling, and
Once they got rolling, they could not
predicted
stop.
that Tony Pollard would have a big game, which he did. Well, you don't call it a big game, but he showed up. He got some yards on the ground. He got some yards through the air. And that's the kind of game that people that drafted Tony Pollard have been waiting for all season.
He finally had a
delivered.
Tony Pollard game.
I
yes.
said to start him. Yes. And so I wrote it down here. Tony Pollard, 1379 for 1, 6 of 6 for 24 through the air. So you're not going to get much better than that out of your a running back who's probably your RB2 anyway. If he's your RB2, then you're set for this week. You should be.
Yeah. Nice 20-plus point game there with the 6 catches is huge. He only had to run it 13 times too. Only running it 13. I think that's good because if he starts to get up over 20 touches per game or so, he doesn't seem to be as effective.
Yeah, he's not Zeke.
No, he's not that kind of player.
Zeke, and so they should have never expected him to be that way. and looks like they're starting to get Dottle involved a little bit.
Yeah,
So
he had a nice nice receiving touchdown the other day. And
he did.
it in the last few weeks, it didn't. So I mean, he only had about I think 3 carries this week, but the last few weeks he had been carrying the ball more, evening out to some extent the split, or at least taking some of the pressure off of Pollard in the run game, where he had been taking more of the actual designated runs. Now, in a game like this where they didn't have to really do anything offensively, but show
Which
up,
they did.
Yeah,
because
they did show up.
Yeah.
Prescott with a nice day,
Prescott,
another 4 touchdown game.
331 yards, 4 TD.
Yeah.
Okay.
CeeDee Lamb only caught 4 passes, but he got you a touchdown. He had a day.
He has TDs in 3 straight games and 4 out of 5. So he's giving you the wide receiver production that you expect. He's probably your first wide receiver pick. And so he's giving you exactly what you hope to get.
Right.
Now, the
Other side
that we hope to get out of Jamar Chase have not gotten.
Right.
Okay.
Through not necessarily any fault of his own, but still it's frustrating when you take a guy that high and then end up seeing the year scuttled for different reasons. But
at least he's on the field, unlike JJ. So
right.
At least
other side of things, there in that Washington Dallas game, Sam Howell takes 4 sacks. He did throw for 300 yards. He did run for a score, but he had a less than stellar day, shall we say there. Yep. Brian Robinson, after having a couple of big weeks in a row, with Antonio Gibson back healthy, Robinson didn't see quite the usage in the pass game that he had seen the last couple of weeks. Only had 3 targets, caught 2 of them, but modest day rushing because they found themselves behind and couldn't use him as much as they probably would have wanted to. Right. So a modest day for Brian Robinson there. Curtis Samuel with a nice day, though. 9 catches.
Here's the guy right here we need to discuss.
9 catches on 12 targets and a 100-yard day.
It was Miami's defense up next.
Yeah.
He's the guy right there. You need to go and see if he's available in your league. And he goes right. He might be
the one guy they can use. Yeah, I mean against Miami because he does everything for him. He's kind of Deebo Samuel light in that he runs the ball. And they run him underneath routes.
McLaurin is already he's already rostered, so you don't need to worry about him. Right. But Samuel might be available, and if he is, get him.
Yeah, I mean. Terry McLaurin had a modest day, only caught 4 out of 11 targets for 50 yards. Jahan Dotson only had 50 yards. Not a big day for either of them.
Looked like he might do some things early on.
Looked in the like you said, early on looked like he might be having a day, and then kind of disappeared. But Curtis Samuel comes out then and kind of saves the day, I guess you could say, fantasy wise. 9 catches for 100 yards at 19 points on a guy that not a lot of people probably started, but
no, you wouldn't have started him against the Dallas defense.
No, probably not. Not in redraft anyway. I mean, I've got in my dynasty leagues, you've got a pretty deep. You play 3 flexes and that kind of thing. But a nice day from Curtis Samuel. He's a nice player.
No team's on bye, he's probably not in your lineup.
Right. Yeah. This week with everybody available, he probably was pretty far down on the usage charts there. Before we get to that Miami-New York Jet game and rip on New York Jets some more, Ryan McCarthy is going to tell us about.
He was ripped on enough of his own, so we can go ahead and pile on as well.
We're going to listen to him in happier times tell us about SeatGeek, and then on the other side, we'll tear his team apart, as I'm sure he already has himself multiple times.
Yes.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right, and as we said
about comedy shows, and that's exactly what happened on Friday.
Oof, yeah. So Miami, goes into New York and takes them out 34-13, and honestly, for quite a lot of this game, Tim Boyle was obviously, and I listen as a Packer fan, a guy that formerly had Tim Boyle adjacent to my roster. I could have told you this was, and that's not rocket, science, and it's not groundbreaking analysis there, but Tim Boyle is just not what you want to be starting in an NFL football game. I don't care what team you're playing against, but especially in a game like this where a team like Miami, an offense can score, you're going to have to score. Running Tim Boyle out there behind that offensive line was a disaster waiting to happen, and it happened.
And it happened.
Yeah.
And then especially
take
you got
7
Mostert
sacks
running around, scoring 2 touchdowns on the ground. And so they didn't have to lean on their wide receivers as much. And so, Miami, when you don't have to rely on those wide receivers, they're cooking, and they did.
Yeah, that was a rough game. Tim Boyle takes 7 sacks. Like I said, he did throw it 38 times, but he only had 179 yards passing in the game. Throws a couple of picks. Just a brutal game. He
Brutal game,
he
and
didn't
anybody
have any time to do anything. Couldn't do anything even when he had time. And hey, they're going to start him again next week. Have fun with that, New York Jet fans.
Yeah, have fun, and at least at the very minimum, okay. We don't have any more Wilsons embarrassing us, okay. Zach Wilson is nowhere to be found.
They might be wishing for him after another game of Tim Boyle, to be dead honest.
Well, maybe they will, but at least there's one less Wilson on the field, and so we're pretty happy about that over here. And
Jets offense had a rough go of it. I mean, without
they're wasting Garrett Wilson
without anyone at quarterback.
Okay,
and
he's as talented as any wide receiver out there, but when you got Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson throwing you the football or trying to at any rate, it's not going to work out very well. But you just have to, if you've got them, what else are you going to do? Especially this week coming up, there are 6 teams on bye this week coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. So
after none this week.
Yeah. So my other recommendation right now is look 1 week ahead right now or today before the game start and find out, because you're going to have guys on bye. I look forward, I'm like, holy crap, I've got no quarterback.
yeah. You're gonna want to take care of that.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation number 2 this week. Look forward 1 week and get your starting lineup straight today. Don't wait till the game start, then you won't be able to pick anybody up.
Right. You've got to be looking ahead, and you've got to be looking ahead right now. Like you said, you're coming off a week. Like we just said, every team played this week. I know 4 of them already played, so today's a smaller slate. It doesn't feel maybe like it's all that full, but everybody was available to you this week in week 12. Week 13, you're going to have that second Buymageddon week of the year where we've got
4.
Yep. 6 teams.
And, I'm still waiting for an explanation from the NFL. What in the world are you playing 6 teams on bye?
I just don't get why they can't even that out more.
The next. That makes 0 sense to me.
Well, and honestly, not just from a fantasy standpoint, because it's frustrating to have guys on bye in week 14 to begin with, even if it is only the Commanders and the Cardinals. But what good does a day off do these guys, a week off do these guys when they're that deep into the season anyway? These guys would rather have it closer to the middle of the season.
Now. That's right. And so
I don't understand why they can't even that out a little more.
And they start, put teams on bye at week 4. You don't need that. People aren't beat up by week 4 for the most part.
But there were no teams on bye in week 8.
I don't get it.
There were none on bye this week. And I understand to an extent, if you're going to play all these early games like they did Thursday and Friday, like I said, it already feels like a smaller slate today anyway. If you have teams on bye, today is even smaller, and they don't want to be, the NFL does not want to do small in any way, shape, or form. So I understand to some extent not having teams on bye this week. But there were no teams on bye week 8.
6 the next week. Come on now.
You've had weeks where there's two teams on bye, and then we have these 2 weeks where a fifth of the league is gone with 6 teams on bye. It doesn't make any sense. But right now, like you said, you need to look ahead, because there are some bigger name teams. I mean, some guys that you don't want to be missing next week.
That's
You've
right.
got the Ravens are on bye, the Bills are on bye, the Vikings are on bye. You've got some teams missing next week with some very, very usable players. And yeah, and if you don't want to fall
Especially at the
victim to that,
quarterback position. So look
it-
at that.
yes. So I mean, if you don't want to fall victim to that, to the, like we said, the Buymageddon there, you're going to want to make sure that you're looking ahead on that and taking care of business now rather than later, so you don't end up regretting it. Yeah. Buffalo, Chicago, Las Vegas, Minnesota, the Giants, and Baltimore. So you got 6 teams on bye. You've got 4 quarterbacks essentially on bye because nobody really cares about what's happening in Las Vegas or New York. But you've got some names that are going to be missing next week for you. So get on that, like Kevin said.
Yeah,
Follow
Dobbs
that
and
advice.
Fields are 2 of them on
Yeah.
one team right there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're looking at some of them. I mean, yeah, like top 10 plays at quarterback position right there.
And
That have
a
been
lot of
startable
people
all
have
season.
Lamar Jackson, of course. You're missing him, and so
And Josh,
don't-
and Josh Allen. I mean,
And
Josh
Josh
Allen
Allen,
and
yeah,
everything
right.
that Bills
I
offense
think
brings to you.
on one dynasty team, that's 3 quarterbacks I have on one team on bye in a single week,
Oof. Yeah.
and it's a 2 quarterback league.
I mean, you're
So-
talking Josh Allen there, just missing him. I mean, he's number 3 scorer in all of fantasy right now, but he is the top. He's still quarterback 1, even after some rough sledding here as of late.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just at that quarterback position alone, missing Allen there
Allen,
is your top
Fields,
overall play.
Dobbs,
Lamar Jackson is quarterback
Jackson.
6 right now. Josh Dobbs is quarterback 10 right now. That's some points that are going to be missing. You mentioned Fields, who doesn't rank in the top 10 only because he's
Well,
he's
only
missed
played,
so much.
what,
But
5
in
games
terms
or
of
so, or
points
6,
per
whatever it
game,
is.
he's a top 12 points per game right now at that position. So some big names there, some big star names there. And running back wise, Josh Jacobs is out. That's gonna hurt everybody. That's a top 10 play. Gus Edwards, who has somehow against all odds become a very startable player every week. He'll be missing next week. James Cook will be missing next week. Saquon will be missing next week. Yeah, I mean, we could keep going on and on, but the point is you want to make sure, especially
for us, Hawkinson not playing next week.
we're going to have to
that's
pick
bad.
up an actual tight end because we don't have a second one.
That's
But
right.
the thing about it is like, especially if you're in a league where you've got multiple flex spots, that kind of thing, or you start 3 receivers, something that's an expanded roster beyond the regular single quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, single flex, single tight end. If you're in a league that has deeper rosters than that, bigger rosters than that, you need to make sure that you're not stuck in a position where you literally can't fill out a lineup,
That's right.
or where you're having to resort to, hoping that Ty Chandler gets some care. Well, Ty Chandler won't even be playing because he's
Right.
on bye,
Yeah.
but
Right.
you don't want to be hoping on guys like that to come in and maybe score some points for you. So be looking right now. Make sure that you've got a plan in
Yep.
place there.
In
for next
redraft league, I got Jacobs, Hawkinson, Chandler, Dobbs, all on bye, and that's one redraft league. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah, that's yeah. You might have to just punt that week there. Hey, we talked a little bit about Justin Jefferson already. Justin Jefferson, the word last night rolling around the media world is that Justin Jefferson is trying his best and really wants to come back and play Monday night there against the Bears. Now, the conventional wisdom says that why would you come back and play? You have a bye next week. You can have an extra week of rest. You come back for week 14. You're ready to go. They may or may not be able to afford that, though. They've been on a bit of a skid. Well, they won 5 games in a row, and then they lost. They lost last week, but they have not looked as strong lately. They're still winning the games they're winning a little bit close. It's been a bit of a they've had almost a reversal of fortune from last year where they won an incredible crazy amount of 1-score games. Now they're not
That's
hitting
right.
that same kind of luck this season, and you're not going to continue to hit that same kind of luck.
No.
You are always going to regress to the mean. But Josh Dobbs coming in after the injury to Kirk Cousins has kept this team very
Afloat.
much competitive and alive.
Absolutely.
But you right now, I mean, listen, I can be as big a homer as anybody, but I am not putting a whole ton of stock in the fact that, when they put the graphic on the screen of who's in the playoffs and who's in the hunt,
Yeah.
the Packers are in the hunt. I mean, they showed up for the hunt, I guess. They're not necessarily a
That's
threat.
because you have 31 playoff spots. And so
Find a 32 team league, right? But but there is some urgency there. They do need to win. And obviously your best player, period, in Justin Jefferson, you would love to have him on the field. And that would help a lot.
It would help a lot, but don't plan on it.
No,
least
do not plan
tomorrow.
on it. I mean, the
It's
conventional wisdom says he
unlikely.
won't play.
It's
Yeah.
unlikely. And so, fortunately for Minnesota, they've got some other players on that team who can keep, Addison and Hawkinson and guys like that.
But so for fantasy wise, though, if you want to take that chance on Jefferson, that's maybe you need a win this week, and you feel like you need to take the big swing. If you want to take the big swing for Jefferson, the thing is you need to make sure, though, that you have that pivot in case he doesn't play. Now
That's right.
if you've
Is
got
Osborne
Addison, that's
available?
perfect.
If he is, get him.
Yeah,
today.
if you've got Addison, that's perfect. For a
They're
pivot.
good. Yeah.
But otherwise, other guys you could think about there is, KJ Osborne, obviously their third wide receiver, but their second default when Jefferson's
But
out.
he hasn't really shown out.
No.
And so I'm not too confident because I picked him up and then he had to go.
Darnell Mooney is a guy who might be available out there
Right.
for you, who
He
at
might
least
be.
would be active and playing, should be able to play in the game. Another guy you could look at or think about, I mean, one of the 37 running backs that Chicago has, if any of them aren't rostered between Johnson, Deonta Foreman, Khalil Herbert, that would be a possibility as long as you play Jefferson in your flex like you should. And a Monday night player should be in your flex if you can help it. But or Cole Kmet, chances
Cole
are,
Kmet?
chances are somebody's got him or somebody owns him. But if you're
I
the one
do.
that owns him,
I do.
and you have another tight end option that's playable as well.
In the other redraft league, I've got Hawkinson. No, it's a dynasty. I got Hawkinson and Cole Kmet is the backup. So Hawkinson don't play, Cole Kmet goes right into the lineup. But he's not going to be, I could tell you that right now. But hopefully you're not waiting on Darnell Mooney. Okay. He had one catch last week.
Talented player, but he just has not connected with Fields, has not been able to get it going this year. But at the very least, he'd be an active. You need an active spot. You don't want to just punt that spot if Jefferson doesn't play.
He's at 86% rostered, so you can cancel that, right?
Yeah, well, but if you own him and say you picked up Trey McBride late in the season because he was having such, he came on or what, if you have another option at tight end that you could play at tight end, you could use Cole Kmet as your pivot, who would still get you some nice appreciable fantasy points if and when, in my opinion, but if Justin Jefferson doesn't play, if you want to chance it for Monday night. Another guy that is coming back, though, and will play this week, Kyron Williams, the running back for the Rams.
That's right.
Listen, they signed Darrell Henderson off his couch.
Right.
Okay. And he's their starting running back and their leading running back for a month. And then now that Kyron Williams is coming back, rather than cutting loose Royce Freeman, rather than doing something else or keeping him around, they cut Darrell Henderson loose right away. So thanks for holding down the fort for a month. We'll call you if you need you back.
Don't
to your
let
couch.
the door hit you on the way out, and make sure you leave the playbook.
But Kyron Williams,
clean out your locker. Make sure
he's a guy that's been very, very useful. Was scoring at 18.5 points per game before the injury this season. I mean, he had 6 touchdowns in 6 games for you, and on an offense that is not a great offense, that you would not expect a running back necessarily to be lighting it up like that. But here's a guy that came in and scored 2 touchdowns week 1. He had a pair of touchdowns week 4 against Indianapolis. He had 158 yards rushing his last time out, week 6. I mean, this is a guy that's been putting points on the
Yeah.
board for you.
17, 27, 30, 24.
Yeah. I mean, just
Those are the
having
two
a
7-point
year.
games besides that. But
and you're gonna get those from, and you're gonna get those from everybody. But I mean, I would expect Kyron Williams, if he's back, if they feel like he's healthy enough to play and start, they're gonna give him the ball.
They're gonna play him today.
Yeah,
I fully expect that to happen.
You know, he's seen 20 plus carries twice so far this season. Like I said, on a team that doesn't necessarily, you wouldn't think the running back position would be as valuable because it's not a team that we expect to be like playing from ahead, positive game script type thing. But he's also a guy that had 10 targets week 2. So he's a guy that they will throw to. Kyron Williams, if you've got him, if for some reason they let him go or whatever, or if you have him, you can roll him out there and hope for the best there. I think that Kyron Williams, it's going to be interesting to see him. His teammate Cooper Kupp looks like he's going to play as well, which honestly should help Kyron Williams. So I like that. Hey, let's take a look at some of the games we like here. It's an abbreviated slate on Sunday, like we said here. 6 games here in the early slot. We've got for the early slot here, what's noon in our time, it's going to be 1:00 out east. The Saints are at Atlanta. The Steelers are at the Bengals in a big divisional matchup there, which could literally end Cincinnati's season for the most part. But Carolina is at Tennessee. Tampa Bay is at Indianapolis. The Patriots are at the Giants, and Jacksonville is at Houston in another divisional matchup there in the AFC South. Now, not an overwhelmingly appetizing slate there, but is there a game from that section that you're taking a look at here, and what are you looking for in it?
Well, out of these games, you have to go with the Jacksonville at Houston game because, as you remember, Houston went into Jacksonville earlier in the season and won. Okay. Apparently, the odds makers aren't listening to that because they have the Jaguars as a 1.5 favorite, and the over/under is 47.5. And so I'm rolling with the over right off the bat. And so when you look at this, anything that you want receivers? How about Tank Dell? 8 out of 10 for 149 yards and a touchdown. TDs those last 3 games.
There you go.
Okay. How about Nico Collins? 7 out of 11 for 65 yards. And then, of course, CJ Stroud. Everybody is well aware of what he's doing over there. And Trevor Lawrence was rediscovered, if you will.
Yeah.
Yep, right.
In a big way.
262 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Right. Yeah. First. I believe they said he was the first Jaguar quarterback to ever have 2 in the air and 2 on the ground in the same game.
And so, they've got that. And Calvin Ridley, 7 out of 9. Okay. Stop me if you heard this. If Zay Jones is questionable, we don't want anything to do with him anyway. But anywhere else, Travis Etienne, you've got the offensive stars in this game, and
offensive stars and a couple of defenses that can be had. They're not star defenses for any.
Jacksonville's 27 against quarterbacks. Houston's 20th, and 21st against tight ends. So, if you got a certain tight end on Jacksonville, get him.
Both of these tight ends are good plays here. Houston and Jacksonville gave up the second and third most points there. Yeah.
That's right. So Schultz, get him rolling for sure. Yeah. And so there's all kinds of offense to me in this game. It's a big game. And of Jacksonville, you need to take them seriously because they have 3 losses on the season, but you can't lose to the Texans twice in the same season and be considered a serious contender in the playoffs, to me.
Well, and so right now,
my cat's right here saying, "Hey, don't be talking bad about the Jaguars," but it's a big game right here. I expect it's going to be on TV locally, so I'm looking forward to seeing what exactly can we. Like I said, anything you're looking for: wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, fantasy equals this game.
Yeah, it should be a good game that way. It's a big game standings wise right now. Houston is holding down a playoff spot right now. They actually find themselves in the 6th spot, so they're one team clear right now of a playoff spot. Tied with Pittsburgh, but they win the tiebreaker with Pittsburgh there for that 6th seed. Pittsburgh holding down the last playoff spot right now in 7th, but Jacksonville's only a game ahead of Houston. Like you said, Houston's already gone in there once.
And beat them.
So you lose this one, Jacksonville, and Houston finds themselves, without digging too deep into the standings here, I would think that would give them a leg up in terms of yeah.
So let me just pull that up.
Yeah, because I believe head-to-head record is your first tiebreaker.
Absolutely, it is.
And if they win 2 against you and you guys end up tied, I mean, you're handing them the leg up. So after today, if Houston wins,
Right.
Houston would be
They'll take over first
your
place
AFC South first place. Yeah.
Because Jacksonville's 7-3, as I mentioned, Houston's 6-4, and so they would charge it at 7-4, but they'd have 2 games up on them. That's tough to overcome.
Yeah. No,
And
you would have to finish if that happened. If Houston wins, Jacksonville would have to finish one game ahead of them to win the division, because a tie would obviously go to Houston, and Houston's playing well enough that I don't necessarily want to be. I don't want to have to be the team that is trying to win a horse race with them here coming up for the rest of the of the season here.
I agree with that. And so
Houston,
that's the game to definitely pay attention to. But there are some games, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. What Cincinnati, are we playing taps on them by the end of the day?
Might be. Let's see if Mark Browning can actually play some.
Can Browning throw the ball to Chase, please?
Yes.
Don't throw
you
it
would
to
hope.
anybody else if that's what that's fine. But throw it to Jamar Chase, please.
No, you would definitely hope. I agreed with you. Jacksonville at Houston was my game on the early slate. I'm not worried about anything. I don't know that anything period will happen in the Patriot Giant game. They may kick it off and the clock will run out on it.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, Indianapolis, I suppose. I mean, there might be a little bit of intrigue there.
The only news out of there is it looks like Rachaad White is going to play.
That's that's about the only thing. Yeah. Tampa Bay, in my opinion, Tampa Bay is a better team of those two. They should win, but that's just not an exciting matchup in any way, shape, or form. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati is probably the other interesting game to me as a football fan. I mean,
Especially
New Orleans and Atlanta.
After we heard that apparently they were having some difficulties,
fights in the locker room, and
Pittsburgh
fighting in the locker room.
Steelers, and our man, Mr. DeAndre Johnson, was right in the middle of all that. And so, are they going to fight themselves, or are they going to fight the other team?
Well, we mentioned Pittsburgh and Cincinnati playing. I said Pittsburgh's holding down that last playoff spot right now. If they lose, they would be tied in the standings at 6-5. Cincinnati needs to win to keep any kind of hope afloat right now.
And nobody apparently believes that much in Pittsburgh, because they were a 6-point favorite to start. It's 1.5 when last I looked. So
get on it before the line changes, folks, I guess.
Well, that's about as big a line change I think I've seen in a long time. It went from 6 to 1.5.
Right.
And it wasn't like because Joe Burrow is back on the field. So I'm not sure what exactly the explanation for that change, unless they're believing in Browning more than the rest of it.
That New Orleans Atlanta game then too is actually, I mean, does carry some implications standings wise right now. New Orleans sitting atop that division right now. Atlanta can tie them. If Atlanta can beat them, they can tie them in the standings, or tie them for win-loss record, and they still have a game. They will finish the season against each other. So, I mean, that game, I guess, if nothing else, if as unexciting as it's going to be and as frustrating as it is going to be to watch Arthur Smith, call an offense again for another NFL week and not knowing whether we're going to necessarily how much Derek Carr we could see. It at least carries some standings intrigue. Late slate though. let's look at this late slate
If they
here. We've
could
got
throw it to London, that would be awesome, please.
just toss it to our guys, and we don't necessarily care what happens with the rest of the game because we know it's not going to be fun to watch.
Sometimes, like my wife will say, "Well, who do you think's going to win this game, or who do you favor, or whatever?" Well, if the roof doesn't collapse,
I favor the end of this game coming at some point. Yeah, that's who do we want to win? We want to just see this game end. Late slate, Cleveland at Denver. The Rams divisional matchup, such as it is, travel to Arizona, Kansas City and the Raiders, and Buffalo and Philadelphia. I don't necessarily know that there's a better answer than Buffalo, Philadelphia, but is that your pick there for this late slate?
That would be my pick, and so I think that's an obvious selection. So I'm going to go with Cleveland and Denver, and because Denver, they've turned their season around like nobody I can remember in recent times, giving up 70 points in one game, right?
Right.
But they're 5-5 now, and so and they've got Cleveland coming in there. Cleveland can put it on you on defense, and so apparently because this is 36.5 with the over under in this game,
right?
And so, but Denver, their defense is not that good.
No, you can do anything you want to pretty much against their defense.
Except
and that
the wide receivers, they're 8th against wide receivers, but everywhere else they're last against tight ends, they're last against running backs, and they're 27th against quarterbacks.
Yeah,
So,
and this is
can
my
you do some things over here, Mr. Ford? Can you do some things that'd be awesome?
Yeah.
And so I think this is a game that Cleveland can go in there and win. At the very least, put together a solid game against. This is a game I think is going to be close all the way through, and whoever doesn't make the most mistakes on offense has the advantage.
And that might be one of the keys. I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's going to get the start again for Cleveland. We saw him can't come in last week and engineer a win, such as it was, but it was a win, and that's all that it needs to be. Now, like you said, this is a little easier matchup than the Steelers defense was in a lot of ways here.
Right.
Facing Denver, I expect they should be able. They're going to want to get Jerome Ford rolling because they don't want to have to lean on Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
No.
It's a game that he can get rolling. It's a great matchup fantasy wise at the running back position, like you said there. Denver is also a team that opposing fantasy defenses can get some run on. And I think that's a key for us as well, because we have Cleveland's defense. And we already said in the defense slot, we're behind the 8 ball right now because Nate got 24 out of his defense.
Right. And we saw Cleveland intercept balls and return them to the end zone.
If there's a team that can do that, if there's a team that can run that out there and pick that up, it is Cleveland's defense. So, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can at least recoup some of that, that we're behind there.
Right.
But no, this is the game that I was interested in as well.
On Russell Wilson, he's not the Russell Wilson of old, even though he has pretty much redeemed himself.
Yeah, played better of late.
He's played better of late, so I don't have to be embarrassed to have a Broncos shirt on. All right.
Hey, there you go. So, and you said Broncos they're on a 4-game win streak. Now, 3 of those wins are by single scores. I mean, they beat Green Bay by 2. They beat Buffalo by 1 somehow, inexplicably. And they beat the Vikings last week by 1. But the key is they were wins. So they've won 4 in a row. They've got themselves in position here to actually make some noise and play spoiler a little bit here. They do not have an easy schedule coming up with Cleveland today. They're on the road at Houston, on the road at the Chargers, on the road in Detroit.
Road at the Chargers is not so difficult as it was looking earlier in the season.
Not as difficult as it was, but you're still on the road. It's a divisional matchup. You're still facing Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. But they do not have an easy schedule coming up. This is with Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback, this is the most winnable game they have here until they face the Patriots in week 16. But if they can continue that little run that they're on here, they could find themselves in position to actually make a little bit of noise here. So, yeah, I agree with you. That's the game that I'm looking at this afternoon as well. Obviously, Buffalo, Philadelphia is a big game.
Nearly as dire because when Deshaun Watson went down, everybody, all the pundits, Okay, except for maybe my friend Dale. Okay, who might be watching the show right now, but because he's a Cleveland Browns guy. But everybody else thought the season was over for Cleveland, and so don't cancel Christmas just yet on them. And they've got a game today that, as you said, they can win simply because of their defense. Limit your mistakes, get Jerome Ford rolling, and that's a prescription for a win.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. Leaning on that run game, leaning on Jerome Ford, leaning on Kareem Hunt. Use your best players where you can. And when you throw,
throw it
we
to
just said,
Amari
we
Cooper,
said
that's
as well,
fine.
Denver can be had with the tight
Absolutely.
end position. David
right.
Njoku, use him today. I mean,
That's right.
David Njoku is a playable, asset in fantasy this
Absolutely
week
is.
as well. He's
Absolutely.
looking at 15 targets last week. If a guy's going to get 15 targets, I don't care what position he's playing. If he's getting 15
right.
targets, he's a guy that you can throw in your fantasy lineup, even on a whim. I mean, if nothing else.
Right.
But I believe he was 9 out of 15 last week or something like that. But yeah, 15 targets, that's playable. I don't care what position it is there.
Right.
Let's take a look here real quick at the injury situation around the league. We'll try and get some updates on some of these guys here. But running back position here, Dameon Pierce is questionable. Looks like he's going to play today. Now, this has been a situation where Devin Singletary has clearly looked like the better of the two backs, at least
Absolutely.
this season.
So if you have Devin Singletary, keep him rolling.
I still think he's the play between the two, yes, but Pierce may cut into some of that.
Jacksonville's at 15, they're middle of the road against running backs, so don't expect he's going to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't expect a ton from him, but the problem is
might be a better matchup at running back than either one of those two guys. If there are, looking at that. If not,
yeah, okay. I mean, your problem is you're looking at Dameon Pierce coming in and possibly stealing some of the touches, and Singletary, his value. He's played better than Dameon Pierce, but his value really shot up when Pierce was out. And if Pierce is going to be in, that's going to even if Singletary retains the starter role or the number one role, the alpha role,
based off his last couple of games.
If you're losing touches to Pierce, that's going to eat into that and hurt a little bit. Kendre Miller for the Saints is going to be out today. You said Rachaad White questionable to play today, but looks like he is going to go, which would be nice there against an Indianapolis defense.
That'd be nice to have him in one of my
leagues.
Gives
up most points to opposing running backs. I mean, it's a big day there.
Yeah.
So, that'll be nice. Roll him out. Jerick McKinnon, I mentioned, we have him on our roster. He is out for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are missing quite a few cats today.
Yeah, and Tony is out. And just to mention, Kansas City.
Yeah.
All right. Can Kansas City score a point in the second half? Is that a weird question?
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, because they have not scored in the second half in their last 3 games.
Yeah.
And so who could have possibly predicted that? Nobody. But
not the juggernaut team that they have.
No, but the issue is they have 26 dropped passes by their receivers.
That was hard to watch last week. I think 24 of them probably came last week. It seemed like
it was. Yeah. Yeah, especially I'm going to have to wash my mouth out when I'm done with this, but MVS, one of the most catchable passes. And then, it's kind of funny because Patrick Mahomes said, well, that throw was my fault. No, it wasn't, dude.
Yeah, the throw was your fault. You threw the flipping ball right to him. That was, the throw was your fault.
And
but
so,
the fault was not yours for the play not happening.
You're going to have to, open my mouth with the jaws of life to have me say MVS one more time in my life. It's not.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes doing what a good quarterback does and shouldering the blame there. But yeah, come on, dude. Yeah, that was a touchdown, and you had the game literally in your hands there, MVS. But like I've said, he is not a reliable receiver. He's not what you want as your.
Like I said,
right now, almost their de facto number one.
Mahomes, it can't be done.
Speaking of wide receivers, there are a lot of names on the list, even on a small slate today. A lot of guys out. A lot of guys are going to be missing today. T. Higgins for the Bengals is going to be out again. That hurts. You have not had much of him at all
whatsoever.
No. Again, like you said, Kadarius Toney is out there for the Chiefs. Stop me if you've heard this one, but Treylon Burks is out. As far as I know, Treylon Burks is still in the league technically. But
Yeah.
yeah,
He's drawing a paycheck, and that's all he's doing.
yeah, that's been
You know,
that's
you
been
talk
rough.
about, you talk about, Grand Theft Auto,
Yeah, right,
you
right.
what do you call it? Major burglary charge.
Can you get a
Okay.
grand larceny? Yeah, can you get a
Grand
guy
larceny.
for?
Okay, that's
Can you
what
get a
I'm
guy on
talking
false
about.
advertising charges for
That's
looking
right.
good in college and
So
then not doing
yeah,
smack? in the
he's got
pros?
that in spades. So I'm
Yeah.
sure he had a nice Thanksgiving. He'll have a nice Christmas, and that's good for him. But that's probably way he keeps his family in his corner. Okay, but other
Right.
than that, he's got nothing. Like I said, I'm not saying his name. Not doing it.
Mac Hollins, the number 2 receiver for the Falcons, is out. Noah Brown had that nice couple of week run
He
where he
did,
just
and just
exploded
as
for
soon as I
the
picked him up,
yeah.
then he stepped in a pothole or something happened to him.
And really too bad
Unfortunately.
because, like we said, he was starting to look like not just a nice fantasy asset, but was really like having one of the nicer stretches of his career to this point.
Absolutely, he was.
And good for that kid. I mean, we like to see that for guys. I like to see
Right,
guys
and
have success.
They'd have an unstoppable wide receiver core if he was playing.
Right. But no, he is out today. Michael Wilson
right.
for the Cardinals is going to be out. Marquise Goodwin, such as it is for the Browns, is out. Probably more valuable as a
Not
return
going there
man than
either.
anything else.
Yeah.
And then we get to Darius Slayton, looking doubtful for the Giants, but he is active now. So you will have Darius Slayton
please
available.
don't do that to yourself.
He's not a guy you want to be playing, but
No.
Darius Slayton is a guy that he just keeps coming out and showing that he is a talented and relevant player. The problem is he's not playing with a talented, relevant quarterback at the moment,
Right.
but he is going to be
Right.
playing today. He is active today. So you can, if you are to that point, you can plug him in your lineup. Devontae Parker, guy that I don't like to talk about. I literally do not rank him. I don't care if he's the only receiver left in the league. I don't rank him when I do my weekly rankings. He has cleared concussion protocol. He will be playing today. Again, he's not, even if you are playing a Patriot receiver, he's not the one you want to be playing. Demario Douglas is the guy to be playing there right now. Other than that, Zay Jones is active. He looked questionable. Now, the thing about this is that funny little stat came out last week. I think it was Field Yates that tweeted it out, but that in the 3 games where Zay Jones has been active and Calvin Ridley has been able to play, Calvin Ridley has like 300 some yards receiving and like 4 touchdowns or something like that. In the games where Zay Jones hasn't played, Calvin Ridley has 1 total touchdown. He's only scored you like 15 total fantasy points or something ridiculous like that. So Zay Jones being active might be a good sign for all you Calvin Ridley owners. So take that for what it's worth, which
that's
might
nice.
be.
I had him in 2 leagues. He got arrested, so I dropped him. So if you're in that league with me and you want to pick him up, you be my guy.
Yeah, I'm not putting a ton of stock into Zay Jones. Zay Jones is a talented player. He was a great pickup last season.
Absolutely.
This season's been obviously, lost cause between his injury and now the interception and that. But like I said, hey, if you want to take a chance that Cardinal or whatever means that Calvin Ridley's going to have a big day, there you have it.
If this was next week, it would be the time to play him. I'm not sure this week is when to do
that. Right. Now for the night game tonight, Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers are both questionable. Odell Beckham probably is trying to play. Might be more likely to play. He's game time call, but all he has to be able to do is play through pain, which I don't know. I don't know if I want to give Odell Beckham that much credit or not, but he is questionable for the night, but it does look like he could play. Zay Flowers questionable as well. Keep in mind, this is a team that's already missing Mark Andrews. And so they're going to have to throw the ball at some point, and they're going to have to throw it to someone. So depending on who is, likely. The backup for Andrews there is not a bad pickup at tight end. And that's a good name to know.
What a great last name that is, too, by the way.
Right.
Likely.
He's likely.
Who are they going to
do something for you?
It's likely.
Whichever is healthy or whoever is healthy between Beckham, Flowers, one or both, those would be your guys to look at. But if they can't go, maybe Rashad Bateman enters the conversation as rosterable after being having some hype coming into the season and then not living up to it at all, they would have to throw to somebody. And I'm not putting my stock on Nelson Aguilar.
Right.
So,
But no,
yeah, Rashad Bateman would be the guy to own
but
if
those
guys
guys would
missed
have
tonight.
to be on your roster already, because by the time you get to that game,
Yeah.
Right.
You're going
all
to be
your bench spots will probably be out of juice.
Jalen Guyton for the Chargers also questionable then. So keep an eye on that there. And then from the tight end position, Hayden Hurst is out. He's going to miss again. We already know Dallas Goedert is out. The interesting thing with Dallas Goedert is they have not placed him and are not going to place him on IR. They think they can get him back in time to actually be usable and do something for them, and that it might be shorter than a 4-week absence. Now, they've got, I think it's Grant Calcaterra. Their other tight end is hurt. So Jack Stoll, who is normally their blocking tight end. Albert Quabenham actually played last week, but the only time you actually got to see Albert O play in that game was when he lined up at one of the split backs for the tush push to do the brotherly shove with Jalen Hurts and get him into the end zone. It was nice. They get the not the drone cam, I guess, but the cable cam that can look straight down on the play. So you got a nice view of Albert O's wide back with his name 800 letters long across it, pushing Jalen Hurts' ass into the end zone a couple times. But he is available and active as well. But yeah, Dallas Goedert is out. And then Gerald Everett.
Tight ends than a Philadelphia tight end.
Right. Because outside of Dallas Goedert, there's none worth owning. And then Gerald Everett for tonight, going to be questionable as well. Donald Parham honestly looks like an up and coming talent there that I think should get a little bit more look than what they've given him, even if Gerald Everett, at this point, he's a nice player. He's probably a better player on your real team than on your fantasy team. I'm just not excited about him. But Donald Parham actually, when he plays, when he gets looks, goes out and performs. So there's your injury report for the week.
That's not a solid matchup. Arizona's 6th against tight end. So you want to search elsewhere.
You kind of want to be looking around elsewhere. Yeah, anyway. But Kevin, what do you got going on here? What have you've been releasing some fun work lately, some outside of our sphere here. Tell people what you got going on.
Well, actually, I stepped back into our sphere this past week when I wrote my start and sit article. I went to our friend who writes the start sits and said, hey, because he does it for the weekend, whatever. I'm like, hey, are you going to do something for the Thursday game? He said, go for it. So I put out an article about the starts and sits on Thursday, this past Thursday, Thanksgiving. And so I have stepped back into the fantasy football realm. And the good news is Reddit, who would refuse to post anything outside, from the outside, let me post that article.
Hey.
So that gives, because they would not do that. I used to do it. They used to post.
Yeah, fantasy football. They've been weird about allowing.
Yeah, they've been real weird. Basketball has been great on Reddit. Baseball has been great on Reddit.
Yep.
Football, they've had clamps. Like you wouldn't believe it. But that article went out, and so I got some views on that. So I'm looking forward. Maybe I'll be doing some of that more often coming up this week. So. You can look for that on of course, on the Belly Up Fantasy Live website. And you can always check me out on X, Twitter X, whatever we want to refer to it as, Kevin62 WILSEA. So
there you go.
All
right. Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at STTChaseFFB there on the Twitter X machine there. And as always, like I said, catch me tonight on MD's Fantasy Football Show. I will be doing the Sunday recap tonight with
Adam. I don't know
Maru.
if you saw that. That he posted those pictures from Thailand.
yeah. He did our broadcast on Wednesday night from there, and he had the jungle in the background. And as I sit here looking out my window at the snow coming down, I'm not happy with Mr. Dan Mater right now. But I'll be hosting the show tonight. The weekly recap there. So catch me there.
Yeah. So, he said he was at Phuket Island, which I've been there.
Really?
So I knew what he was talking about.
There you go.
I've been there. And I've been on the beach where, years later, where the the tsunami devastated everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was on that exact beach
Huh.
years before, but so
I
I
have
was
not- I've been
interested
a-
to see those pictures and the James Bond island
There, yeah.
that he showed.
Cool.
So if you want to see some interesting pictures, check out Dan Mader's pictures from Thailand. They're
There you
excellent.
go. Yeah, I've been to Europe a couple times, never been anywhere in Asia, but I mean, yeah, it looked some of the pictures that he's been posting and the location he was broadcasting from Wednesday night looked nice. But I'll be back with him then on Wednesday night as well for MD's Fantasy Football Show, Operation Domination as well.
Yeah,
You can find me
be
there.
nice to my Seahawks if you would, please.
Listen, I'll be as nice as they allow me to be.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
that's
I know.
how- that's the promise that you have there.
Especially going up against the Cowboys on Thursday, and so it
All
is
right.
what it is.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Get out there, set your lineups here. Heading into the
This
noon
week
slate here,
and
the
next
early
week.
slate.
Don't forget this week and next week.
Yep. And check out like Kevin said, check out that waiver wire, check out your roster, make sure that you're covered for week 13 as well. But until then, we're going to tell everybody, hey, good luck to you. Catch us back here, same bat time, same bat channel next week. And until then, we'll say Slan Java. We're going to say on Wisconsin. Go Bucky.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
See ya.